bone and sickle, bleeding saints and forest witches, the past unburied, the books unsealed, the old celebration returning.
Hello, and welcome to my study. Please come in and have a seat. All the books surrounding you are those used to research our show, and the individual to my right here, along with managing domestic duties, serves as our reader for any passages that will be directly quoted from these sources. Her name is Mrs. Carswell.
Hello.
I should start by announcing our September hiatus. We're taking 1 month off, but we'll be back in October with your Halloween content. I'll be doing some research, and Mrs. Carswell will be back home visiting her mother.
If I can get everything done in time.
Well, you have to. I mean, you have a plane ticket, right?
Yes.
And you have to go with your mother and her condition.
You can't take it too seriously. There's no doctor telling her that.
That she doesn't have long?
She does this every few years. She did it once when I first started here. That time I took a trip home. I just didn't want to mention it at the time.
But you said she's bedridden.
She got in bed last week. At the end of summer, she just goes through this low energy thing and says, "Come September, all be gone." It's the end of the honey harvest and the nectar stopped flowing. It really affects her. She thinks her life's ebbing away with the nectar.
That's strange.
I mean, I understand it in a way, but I don't like it. She knows it scares me. Or it used to, the first time. But you can't just ignore someone when they say they're going to pass. That's rude.
I guess so.
But she likes to see your reaction. It's kind of cruel. I remember early on how she'd bring it up, then let it go, then bring it up. She'd say something like, "The blooms have bloomed and the end is ending," and then just stare at you for a reaction. One morning, she came in with a bouquet of wilted flowers she'd plucked just to show me, a wild bergamot that was all wilted and shriveled. She put it in a vase on the table and left it there to turn to dust. She even ordered a coffin years ago.
Oh.
She had it in the parlor that year, but now it's in the basement. It's a honeycomb pattern. It's actually kind of nice.
Huh.
Anyway, I have just a little more seasonal wrap-up to do with the hives, so I'll be ready for my flight, but might have to have someone come over from the apiary club to take care of a couple things I won't have time for. Megan, you don't know her.
I'd like to know if anyone's going to be on the property.
I'll give her your number so she can call in advance.
What?
Okay, not your number. She can call me and I'll let you know.
What about the gate? Were you going to give her a key to the gate too?
Never mind. I'll just do everything. I can see it'll be an issue.
But I am curious about the honeycomb pattern.
On Mother's coffin.
Yes. Would you happen to know if it was a vinyl wrap, like on a car or a truck?
I'm not sure.
There's a company in Nashville that's been doing those, but it kind of seems tacky. No offense to your mother.
None taken.
I sketched out some ideas years ago, but I think it'd be more a matter of custom woodwork and finishes.
For yours?
Just for fun. A lot of it actually comes down to the fittings, the latches, the swing bar handles, but it's actually mainly the corners. Those really set the tone and would have to be custom one-offs, I think.
She did have custom material on the lining with a honeycomb pattern, but it was subtle, more tasteful. I didn't even notice at first.
Oh, that's not even a question. Lining has to be velvet, never satin.
Can we just start the show? This is getting creepy and I have lots to take care of. I have to scrape, clean, and stack the frames and do a mic check, and then I have to...
Okay, I don't need a list. We can start.
Thank you.
So, this is episode 158, Born with a Veil.
The doctor told her quite sternly that she must push, and she did. And then she felt something being taken from her. Then the doctor held her son up by the legs. She had seen his tiny sex and known that he was a boy immediately. And as the doctor groped for the air mask, she had seen something else. Something so horrible that she found the strength to scream again after she had thought all screams were used up. He has no face! But of course there had been a face. Danny's own sweet face. And the caul that had covered it at birth now resided in a small jar which she had kept almost shamefully. She did not hold with superstition, but she had kept the caul nevertheless. She did not hold with wives' tales, but the boy had been unusual from the first.
There's no mention of it in the Kubrick film, but in Stephen King's novel, The Shining, the psychically gifted Danny Torrance is born with a caul, or born with a veil, as it's sometimes said. A caul is part of the amniotic sac that clings to the emerging baby like a cap or hood, obscuring the face, as Wendy Torrance had observed. It's an extremely rare phenomenon, occurring in roughly 1 in 80,000 births. Rarer still is the caul birth, in which the child appears completely enveloped in an intact amniotic sac. Nonetheless, a number of famous figures are supposed to have been born with the veil. Alexander the Great, Charlemagne, Lord Byron, Napoleon, Freud, Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, and Liberace. Folklore would attribute the great deeds accompanied by these individuals to this particular aspect of their birth. The caul betokens not only great success and luck in life, but may endow the child with special attributes, the gift of healing or second sight, or the ability to defeat witches and evil spirits. More rarely, the caul may betoken something less positive, that the child will grow up to be a wanderer or even a witch or a kind of vampire. There's a lot of interesting language describing this phenomenon, so I'm going to have to indulge here in a bit of word nerdery. Strangely, the word caul is not related to the word caul, as you might think, as in hood, though there's an amusing related anecdote in Robert Burton's 1621 medical philosophical text, The Anatomy of Melancholy. It's about another misunderstanding.
A silly, jealous fellow, seeing his child newborn included in a caul. Thought sure a Franciscan that used to come to his house was the father of it. It was so like a friar's caul, and thereupon threatened the friar to kill him.
Our word caul actually derives from the Middle English word caul, describing an old form of women's headwear, being a sort of bag or cap made of netting worn to keep the hair in place. Before the 17th century, when coiffe came to designate the styling of hair, its original French meaning applied to that style of netted headwear discussed and to the amniotic veil in question. It was borrowed into Middle English also for that usage, coiffe. A strange term used in the north of England and mainly Scotland referred to the caul as a
silly hood.
The word silly here is an old usage from the Anglo-Saxon sely, as in the German word for blessed or lucky. The word silly, by the way, only came to its modern meaning in the 17th century. This was after the Anglo-Saxon sense of silly or holy was downgraded in the 12th century to mean innocent, and then pitiful or weak, and eventually absurd or ridiculous. Little side note there. The original Scottish version of silly hood would have been
zellyhoo,
related to the Northern English and Scottish term
hallyhoo.
coming from holyhood, another name for the caul. The Germans also described the caul as a hood or cap, using terms that would be literally translated as
lucky cap, water cap, midwife's cap.
Germans and Dutch speakers sometimes describe the caul as a helmet, and Latin likewise used the term caput galleatum, or helmeted head, to describe the caul. While cap or hood or hairnet may suffice to describe a smaller scrap of amniotic sac atop the infant's head, sometimes a larger portion may be seen clinging to the newborn's shoulders and torso, what would be described as a shirt or cloak. Latin used one of these words for cloak, amiculum, for the caul. In Scandinavian languages, it's not just a cloak, but a victor's cloak or lucky cloak in which one is born. German uses similar formulations, along with calling it a helmet. Italians refer to it as a shirt, as do most Slavic languages, though Slovak and Polish call it a cap, as does Romanian. Like English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Greek also can describe it as a veil or being born with a veil. Not infrequently, expressions like
born with a shirt
are used just to mean
born lucky,
without any reference to a child being born with a caul, implied or inferred. Tales about luck-bringing cauls go back to antiquity. Writing at the end of the 4th century, Aelius Lampridius, a contributor to the Historia Augusta, a collection of biographies of Roman emperors, references them in a listing for Diodotimus or Diadotimus. In a fanciful description of his birth, Lampridius writes,
"This child, instead of a caul, had a narrow band like a diadem, so strong that it could not be broken, for the fibers were entwined in the manner of a bowstring. The child, they say, was accordingly called Diadematus."
From the word diadem, that is. Whether we're to assume this is the rolled-up vestige of a normal caul or a very peculiar birth defect is unclear, but in either case, it did not exactly bring divine favor, as at the age of 9, Diademus was decapitated by allies of Heliogabalus, who kept the head as a trophy, fleshy diadem and all. And it hadn't been a particularly long reign. Diademus ruled only 1 month, from May to June of the year 218. Whatever the truth of this story, Lampridius, in an aside, provides the first attestation of preserving cauls as good luck charms, noting that cauls are something which
midwives seize and sell to credulous lawyers, for it is said that this bring luck to those who plead.
The late 18th century folklore compilation, Brand's Popular Antiquities, claims that around the same time that Lampridius was writing, the Archbishop or Patriarch of Constantinople, St. John Chrysostom,
inveighs against it in several of his homilies. He is particularly severe about one Praetus, a clergyman who, being desirous of being fortunate, bought such a coif from a midwife.
I don't see the original quote in collections of Chrysostom's homilies, but in Theodore Balsamo's 12th century commentary on Canon 61 at the Trullian Council, which is all about superstitions and forbidden magic, he chastises a prefect who
was arrested while evidently carrying in his bosom the caul of a newborn infant, and said this had been given to him by a certain woman for the purpose of turning away and stopping up the mouths of those who tried to speak against him.
So we know that from at least the 4th century, cauls were kept as magical talismans carried by individuals hoping to obtain a share of the luck with which the caul-wearing infant was born, and we've heard that they might make their way into the market via midwives involved in the birth, but they were also kept by the family of the newborn. In London's Victoria and Albert Museum, for instance, a locket inscribed with the name John Monson and the date and time of his birth in 1597 holds a bit of dried tissue presumed to be a portion of his caul, prepared in this way as a baptismal gift. A silver casket displayed in the Danish royal collections contains the caul of King Frederick III, preserved from his birth in 1609, and the will of a
Sir John Offley, Knight of Madeley Manor, Staffordshire,
who died in 1658, mentions
one jewel done all in gold enamelled, wherein there is a caul that covered my face and shoulders when I first came into the world, the use thereof to my loving daughter, the Lady Elizabeth Jenny, as long as she shall live. And so long as that jewelled caul is cherished as a precious heirloom, the luck shall never leave.
artifacts and attestations evidencing the keeping of cauls as lucky charms, while scantier in the 16th and 17th century, become more abundant in the 18th century, and particularly so by the 19th, when you might presume the practice would have died out. In 1742, British obstetrician and author William Smellie, that's his name, in his book, A Collection of Cases and Observations in Midwifery, remarks of one of his patients.
She expressed great joy when she knew the child was born with a caul, which she dried and carefully kept, in full persuasion that her child would never suffer extremely, either by sea or land, while it remained in her possession.
The reference to sea here is important as an indicator of the caul's emerging value as a talisman against drowning. The typical manner of drying and preserving cauls, by the way, at least from the 18th century forward, was to lay them on paper, stretch them out, and let them dry and adhere, becoming part of the parchment as they did so. How the caul became a charm against drowning is unclear, aside from the notion that it's associated with the infant's escape from the watery womb, of course. But by the late 1700s, the belief seems to have been well established, as evidenced by advertisements in British newspapers. From a 1779 edition of the London Morning Post,
To the gentlemen of the Navy and others going long voyages to sea, to be disposed of, a child's caul.
London Times in 1813,
To persons going to sea, child's caul, in a perfect state, to be sold, cheap.
and from 1835 London Times again.
A child's caul to be disposed of, a well-known preservative against drowning. Price, 10 guineas,
In 1848, the London Times advertised a caul
for which £15 was originally paid, was afloat with its late owner 30 years in all perils of a seaman's life, and the owner died at last in the place of his birth.
By 1850, the superstition was so well known that Dickens included it in the opening paragraphs of David Copperfield, who tells us,
I was born with a caul, which was advertised for sale in the newspapers at the low price of 15 guineas. Whether seagoing people were short of money about that time, or were short of faith, and preferred cork jackets, I don't know. All I know is that there was but one solitary bidding, and that was from an attorney connected with the bill-broking business, who offered £2 in cash and the balance in sherry, but declined to be guaranteed from drowning on any higher bargain.
in 1899, the Oxford University publication Notes and Queries related this amusing bit of lore collected by a folklorist in the Hampshire community of Liphook.
A child born in a caul will always be a wanderer, so long as the caul is kept, and moreover, being unable to sink in water, cannot be drowned. An old woman told my niece lately of her brother, who was so born, and so potent was the influence of the caul, that when his mother tried to bathe him, he sat on the surface of the water, and if forced down, came up again like a cork. There seems no doubt that this was fully believed and related in all seriousness.
Unrelated to the maritime use of cauls, but likewise amusing, was a clipping reprinted in Notes and Queries in 1889. Shortly after the birth of a caul bearer,
the veil was placed on one side and no notice was taken of it until some hours after the child's birth. When examined, however, it was found that the words British and Foreign Bible Society were deeply impressed upon the veil. When this discovery was made, the greatest excitement prevailed in the neighborhood, some of the women declaring that nothing short of a miracle had been enacted. The doctor, who inquired into the matter, however, soon explained the affair. The veil, whilst in a pliable condition, had been placed upon a Bible, on the cover of which the words British and Foreign Bible Society were deeply indented. The words were in this way transferred to the veil, but some of the inhabitants still ascribe the affair to supernatural influence.
Cauls were reportedly still occasionally carried by sailors during World War II. The superstition is mentioned in Deborah Heiligman's 2019 book, Torpedoed, relating the story of the SS city of Benares sunk by a German submarine in 1940 while transporting children being evacuated from Britain to Canada. Of the 258 who lost their lives in the tragic incident, 77 were children. One of the lucky ones rescued after 11 days in a lifeboat was Fred Steels. Heiligman writes,
He was 11, originally from the fishing town of Hull in Yorkshire, on the east coast of England. Fred seemed made for the sea. He had been born with a caul, a piece of membrane over his face, which is considered a good luck charm against drowning.
It's known that Steels grew up with this superstition, which he surely would have contemplated during those 11 days adrift, but he did not carry his caul as a protective charm. The reason we know the Steels family was familiar with the superstition is the same reason he didn't carry the caul with him. As Heiligman and others report,
his mother sold it to the skipper of a fishing boat.
Then again, there's no rule saying that those born with a caul must also carry it with them in order to be protected. At least I don't think so. Another interesting attribute of caul folklore is the membrane's sympathetic bond with its owner years after the birth. Returning to Notes and Queries, an edition from 1899, we find an anecdote reflecting this. It's about a mother in the town of Doncaster who
kept the caul stretched on a sheet of notepaper, and whenever her son was in danger, it became wet and soft, but it remained dry like a dried bladder so long as he was safe. It got destroyed somehow, and soon after the brother, a sailor, was shipwrecked and drowned.
This aspect of a sympathetic postpartum bond is further explored in William Henderson's 1866 book, Notes on the Folklore of the Northern Counties of England and the Borders. Henderson reports on a servant
found by her mistress in a state of dejection, for which at first there seemed to be no assignable cause. After much questioning, the lady elicited that her servant had been born with a veil over her head, which was now predicting evil to her. The veil, she said, had been carefully preserved by her mother. The girl kept it locked in her chest of drawers and regularly consulted it as her oracle and adviser. If danger threatened her, the veil shriveled up. If sickness, the veil became damp. When good fortune was at hand, the veil laid itself smoothly out, and if people at a distance were telling lies about her, the veil would rustle in its paper. Again, the veil did not like her to cut her hair. If she did so, it changed color and became uneasy. The owner firmly believed that when she died, the veil would disappear. She regarded it with mysterious awe and only allowed her most intimate friends to know of its existence.
The connection between the living mortal and the dried amniotic tissue, whether it emerges with the newborn as a caul or is expelled as afterbirth, figures prominently into Icelandic mythology. Sir James George Fraser gives us an excellent summary of all this in his classic 1890 publication, The Golden Bough.
It is an ancient belief in Iceland that the child's guardian spirit, or a part of its soul, has its seat in the chorion, or fetal membrane, which usually forms part of the afterbirth. Hence the chorion was itself known as the filia, or guardian spirit. It might not be thrown away under the open sky, lest demons should get a hold of it and work the child harm thereby, or lest wild beasts should eat it up. It might not be burned, for if it were burned, the child would have no filia, which would be as bad as to have no shadow.
Another reason the disposition of the caul must be handled so precisely was the fear that it would fall into the hands of witches. Cauls were, for instance, often used in the compounding of love potions. In The Anatomy of Melancholy, quoted earlier, Burton provides this rather challenging list of ingredients to assemble for one such filter.
The tongues of vipers, the brains of donkeys, the hairs of horses, the rope of a hanged man, a stone from an eagle's nest,
and
the cloak with which infants are born.
In 1609, Louise Boussier, midwife to the court of France, in her pioneering work on obstetrics, Observation des Vers, advised midwives
never keep the amniotic membrane, known as a child's caul, with which some infants are born, covered about the head and shoulders, inasmuch as sorcerers make use of it.
While those born with a caul were regarded in most regions as simply lucky, their status as individuals marked by fate could also inspire unease, suggesting an evil destiny, as a Hungarian proverb has it.
Who is born in the cloak dies in the rope.
In the folklore of Great Britain, as well as that of Norway and Iceland, caul bearers might be gifted with second sight. Possibly even more widespread is the idea that those born with a caul possess the gift of healing, in France, Germany, Holland, and Iceland, for instance. And all of this, of course, can easily bring the caul bearer under suspicion of witchcraft. In Eastern Europe, the destiny of those born with a caul is decidedly darker. Romanians had a saying similar to the Hungarians.
He who is born to be hanged will never drown.
That's a way of looking at it. But this is a best-case scenario. Other Romanians said they were fated to become strigoi upon death, that is, an undead creature similar to vampires. In Poland, they were fated to become a type of vampire, the wiecki, which shares attributes with the Noxera discussed in episode 32, that is, a plague-bringing creature which, according to German folklore, cannibalized itself in the grave. A mother, not exactly pleased with this destiny for her offspring, was advised to dry the caul, grind it into a powder, and mix it with a meal or drink to be given to the child on his 7th birthday. In the countries of the former Yugoslavia, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Serbia, males born with a caul were fated to become another kind of supernatural being, a sort of spirit traveler or shaman. In Slovenia and Croatia, it was called a krusnik. In Serbia, a zudhac. The krusnik would leave his body at night, often in the form of an animal, a golden horse, a stag, or a bee, and do battle with evil dragons, bringing diseases, storms, and ill weather to the community. At the birth of the krusnik, his mother would set aside the caul to dry, then sew it into a pouch, which had to be worn under his shirt at all times. This applied to the zudhac, who was said to be born with a white caul and did battle against malevolent witches, or strikas, born with red cauls, though certain regions reverse the lore of those colors. Like the dragons fought by the Krosniki, the Strigas were responsible for all sorts of ills besetting the community. The Zutoch might also battle the Mora, the night hag, or even opposing Zutachi from other regions. Defeating these brought the community they represented the agricultural yield of their neighbors. Similar folklore and figures existed in 16th century Italy's northeastern Friuli region, just north of Venice, and, significantly, on the western border of Slovenia, where belief in the Krusnik prevailed. I don't know which influenced which or to what extent, as reliable historical studies of the Slovenian lore seem rather scarce, but the opposite is true regarding the case in Italy. It was the subject of an intensive study by Italian historian Carlo Ginzburg, resulting in his 1966 book, The Night Battles, Witchcraft and Agrarian Cults in the 16th and 17th Centuries. A pioneer in the field of historical research known as microhistory, Ginzburg made extensive use of transcripts left behind when believers in this folklore came up against local inquisitors. I'm only going to address the folklore related to cauls here, as I've been meaning to devote a whole episode to this topic, quite likely our next one. Those interviewed in these records were not only believers in the mythology, but declared themselves to be benandanti, literally good walkers, or more idiomatically probably, those who go forth to do good. Like the previously discussed figures, the benandanti claimed to leave their bodies by night to fight malevolent witches who would inhibit or destroy the agricultural prosperity of their communities. A chief figure in the proceedings was Battista Moduco, who worked as a town crier and alleged that he had been a benandanti for 8 years. He explained his participation thus.
One enters at the age of 20 and is freed at 40, if he so wishes. Members of this company are all those who are born with the caul, and when they reach the age of 20, they are summoned by means of a drum, the same as soldiers, and they are obliged to respond.
At this, the cleric questioning him, a brother Felice, raised a reasonable question.
How can it be that we know so many gentlemen who are born with the caul, and nevertheless are not vagabonds?
Here, as Ginzburg points out, he replaces the word benandanti with vagabond as a sort of distancing technique. Moduco is unfazed, answering simply,
I am saying, everybody born with the caul must go.
Regarding the caul,
Moduco asserted that he had always worn it about his neck. Then, after losing it, he stopped going forth at night.
The caul Moduco was born with, or
the little shirt,
as it's called in the Friulian dialect, was, in a strange sense, a collective property of the Brotherhood. Referring to the caul, the benandante who initially appeared to Moduco, according to his testimony, addressed him in this way.
You have to come with me, because you have something of mine.
Ginzburg provides a bit more background lore from the region regarding the little shirt.
It was supposed to protect soldiers from blows, cause the enemy to withdraw, and even help lawyers to win their cases.
The benandanti by no means considered themselves heretics, which was the issue at hand in all the interrogation, of course. They saw themselves much like Old Tis of Calderun, or
the Hound of God,
whose trial in Livonia was the subject of our episode 150. According to their own beliefs, they acted in the service of the good in battling malevolent witches, and even embraced certain elements of Catholic practice, albeit in an extremely heterodox way. Another benandanti question, Paolo Gasparuto, relates,
About a year before the angel appeared to me, my mother gave me the caul in which I had been born, saying that she had it baptized with me, and had 9 masses said over it, and had it blessed with certain prayers and scriptural readings. And she told me that I was born a benandante, and that when I grew up I would go forth at night, and that I must wear it on my person, and that I would go with the Benandanti to fight the witches.
Ginsburg mentions other instances of masses said over the Benandante's calls to increase their power. According to Moduco's testimony,
once, when he was in Rome, Moduco had a monk celebrate more than 30 masses over his call, which had been baptized with him.
He also mentions a trial occurring in 1611 examining the case of a Friulian lawyer, Giovanni Bertuzzi di Nimis, who had hidden the preserved caul, or possibly amniotic sac, of his son under an altar to increase its power, and later testified that,
with that caul, he won all his cases.
Similarly, he mentions 2 women of Udine who had done likewise in 1647.
And then sent it to a young man who was off to war, so as to guarantee his safety.
And since I told myself I would restrict this discussion to folklore of the little shirt, I'll end with that, though we probably will be revisiting the Benandanti soon. Returning to the maritime superstitions around calls, one last article I stumbled upon, dated December 2nd, 2016, from the British website Surrey Live.
Ron Davidson found what he believes to be the caul of Cecil William Fitzpatrick in a leather suitcase when he was searching through his late father's, Ronald Sr., belongings 3 months ago. It was a horrendous-looking thing, he said, and looks like a section of skin that had been cut from someone who has been tortured. I thought, why would anyone want to keep that? It looks awful. But the letter says it was highly prized by sailors.
Well, we know all about that, but the reason this particular caul is of interest is that it was supposed to have belonged to a survivor of the Titanic, one of the ship's stewards, a Cecil William Fitzpatrick. Photos show what looks like an actual caul, but the provenance is a little blurry, involving an undated letter found with the caul and transfer of the caul from the Titanic survivor Fitzpatrick to Davison via a third party only identified as Blondie. It certainly could be the real thing, but more importantly, it gave me a chance to shoehorn in my favorite folk song about the disaster, When the Great Ship Went Down.
Oh, they built the ship Titanic, and when they got it through, they thought they had a ship that the water would never
Versions of it first appeared in Alabama only a few years after the tragedy, and it was recorded early on in the 1920s. But by the folk revival of the 1960s, it had been embraced as a sort of summer camp sing-along, drowning kids and all. Anyway, here's a snippet from Tracy Newman from 1965, and we'll be back in October.
All the children screamed and cried as the water came over the side. It was sad when the great ship went down. Oh, it was sad, good Lord, it was sad. It was sad when the great ship went down to the bottom of the husbands and wives. Itty-bitty children lost their lives. It was sad when the great ship